Coast Guard crew is back home in Alameda after seizing hundreds of millions of dollars worth of cocaine in a daring operation at sea.
Out in the vast, empty expanse of the eastern Pacific, the ocean keeps its secrets. But on June 18, 2019, the crew of the Coast Guard cutter Monroe spotted something that didn't belong. It wasn't a ship, it was a phantom. A dull gray capsule, riding so low in the water it seemed to melt into the waves, moving at a steady 10 miles per hour. It had no flags, no markings, no identity. Approaching it was a gamble. These vessels are notoriously unstable. Boarding a moving target is dangerous enough. Boarding one designed to sink at a moment's notice is borderline suicidal. For a tense moment there was nothing. Then the hatch creaked open from below. As it swung wide, the team saw what they were risking their lives for. The cramped hold was packed wall to wall with bales of cocaine, brick after brick, a solid mass of narcotics. When the final count came in, the load weighed over 17,000 pounds. This was no fishing boat, it was something far darker. A self-propelled semi-submersible, or SPSS. Most just call them what they are, narco subs. These are not submarines in the traditional sense. They don't dive deep into the abyss. Their genius is simpler and deadlier. They use ballast tanks to flood their hulls, allowing them to ride almost completely submerged. Only a small cockpit and exhaust pipe break the surface, creating a radar cross-section so minimal they are practically invisible. They are ghosts, engineered for one purpose, to vanish. But their most dangerous feature isn't their stealth, it's their self-destruct mechanism. Hidden inside every semi-sub is a crude but brutally effective system called a scuttle valve. Open it and seawater rushes in. Within minutes, the hold floods, the boat sinks, and billions of dollars in evidence goes with it. This is why boarding teams move with such desperate speed. They aren't being dramatic for the camera. They are in a frantic race against time, trying to secure the vessel before it vanishes right from under their feet. In September 2019, the crew of the cutter Valiant learned this lesson firsthand. They intercepted a 40-foot semi-sub carrying 12,000 pounds of cocaine. But they were too late. The hull was already compromised. They managed to recover just 1,000 pounds before the vessel tipped and plunged into the depths, taking the remaining 11,000 pounds with it. To understand the danger, you have to imagine what it's like inside. A long, narrow tube. The air is thick, hot, and heavy with the acrid sting of diesel fumes. There are no bunks, no galley, no comforts of any kind. The crew, usually 3 or 4 men, live for days or even weeks, crammed between shrink-wrapped bricks of cocaine and flexible fuel bladders. Navigation is a handheld GPS. Communication, a cheap satellite phone. It is a floating tomb, sometimes literally. In March 2023, the Colombian Navy stopped a 50-foot semi-sub. Inside, they found 2 crewmen dead and 2 others barely conscious. They hadn't been attacked. They had been poisoned by toxic fumes from a fuel leak in their sealed underwater coffin. The scale of these operations is staggering, but it raises a fundamental question. How do you build a multi-ton, ocean-spanning vessel like this in secret? The answer isn't in a shipyard. It's deep in the jungle.
If you follow the rivers deep into Colombia's coastal wilderness, far from any road, you'll eventually hear it, the low thrum of a generator, the scrape of tools on wood. Here, hidden under the mangroves, are the ghost factories. Makeshift shipyards, shielded from satellites and patrol planes by the dense canopy. Everything, fiberglass cloth, barrels of resin, diesel engines, batteries, is smuggled in on small boats, disguised as normal river traffic. The construction is modular. Hulls are often built in sections, stashed under trees, then moved to a hidden creek for final assembly. The boats that emerge fall into 2 categories. The low-profile vessel, or LPV, which rides low but is always on the surface, and the more advanced self-propelled semi-submarine, the SPSS, with its ability to ride almost fully submerged. The economics are as brutal as the design. A single semi-sub can cost up to $2 million to build, but a successful trip can carry a cargo worth over $100 million. At that price, losing a few boats to the Coast Guard or to scuttling is just the cost of doing business. And the business is evolving. In 2010, authorities discovered a 74-foot diesel-electric super sub capable of true underwater travel. It had a range of nearly 7,800 miles, enough to cross an ocean. Then in 2019, they proved it. A 70-foot semi-sub was seized off the coast of Spain, having crossed the entire Atlantic from South America. The jungle boats had gone global. So, how do you hunt a ghost? The hunt doesn't start on the water. It starts in the sky. Long-range patrol aircraft like the Customs and Border Protection P-3 Orion and the Coast Guard's HC-130J Super Hercules are the eyes of the operation. Once designed to hunt military submarines, they now scan the seas for these lowriders. For every hour a P-3 is in the air, an average of 40 pounds of cocaine is kept off the streets. The intelligence from aircraft, satellites, and other sources all flows to a single nerve center in Key West, Florida, Joint Interagency Task Force South. Here, a team from the DoD, Homeland Security, and international partners fuses the data into a single, living map of illicit traffic. When a target is confirmed, JATF South vectors the closest asset to intercept. It might be a Coast Guard cutter, or it might be a U.S. Navy warship carrying a specialized Coast Guard Law Enforcement Detachment, or LEDT. The Navy brings the speed and sensors. The Coast Guard brings the legal authority to board and arrest. For faster targets, they call in the Helicopter Interdiction Tactical Squadron, or HITRON. After warnings are ignored, a marksman uses a .50 caliber rifle to surgically disable the boat's engines, ending the chase without a firefight. But with semi-subs, the crucial moment comes after the boarding. For years, if the crew scuttled the boat and the drugs were lost, prosecution was difficult. That all changed with the Drug Trafficking Vessel Interdiction Act. The law made it a felony to simply operate an unregistered, stateless semi-submarine with the intent to evade detection.
The evidence was no longer the drugs. The evidence was the vessel itself. Prosecutors now only had to prove the boat was built for stealth and its crew was trying to hide. The ghost itself had become the crime. This legal weapon, combined with relentless patrols, leads to staggering results. In the summer of 2025, Operation Pacific Viper saw cutters and aircraft surge into the Eastern Pacific. The result? Over 40,000 pounds of cocaine seized in just a few weeks. Later that year, the Coast Guard announced its largest single offload in history, more than 76,000 pounds of narcotics at Port Everglades, a haul valued in the billions. Press releases tied the shipments to Mexico, Sinaloa, and Jalisco New Generation cartels, supplied by Colombia's Clan del Golfo. Every bale stacked on that pier represents a broken link in a global chain of corruption and violence, a ghost that was caught before it could deliver its poison. But the smugglers are constantly innovating, always looking for the next advantage. And in 2025, Colombian authorities found it. Their first uncrewed semi-submersible, a drone. Controlled remotely via a Starlink satellite connection. It carried no crew and no cargo. It was a test, a proof of concept. Without the need for a human crew, the design can be revolutionized. No life support, no cockpit, every inch of space dedicated to fuel and cargo, allowing for greater range and heavier loads. A vessel that feels no fear, no fatigue, and has no witnesses to interrogate. The cat-and-mouse game on the high seas has been defined by a race between stealth and detection, but now the equation is changing. The cartels are not just building ghosts anymore, they are teaching them how to sail themselves. The hunt has entered a new, terrifying era.